like I have a connection. All right. So while it gets connected, we're going to start talking about the circulatory system. The circulatory system is connected directly to the respiratory system. We actually call it the cardiopulmonary or cardiorespiratory system. They go together at all times. What we're going to do here, let me see. I'm confused here. There you go. Okay. So I got my image because it records image and image. So I lost me. All right. So we're going to talk about the cardiovascular system, the circulatory system. We're going to start on page 51 of my book. I don't know. Hopefully you have the same edition. So let me just get this so you can see here. Faculty. We have really cool shirts. The oncologists and so I like to wear my gear. The circulatory system is really close to my heart because, as you know, I'm a cardiovascular tech, an invasive cardiovascular tech. And so the heart, the other program, the invasive cardiovascular, it is 16 months talking just about the heart. So you can imagine how complex it is. Therefore, I'm very excited about this particular section. I love the whole entire SPD course, but circulatory system, kind of like my specialty. Let's go that way. So there are a few things that we need to remember about, or that we need to know about the functions of the circulatory system. There are three: transportation, regulation, and protection. Within three, you can see here on page 51, when we talk about transportation, this is the circulatory system has three subcategories. Remember, transportation is moving throughout the entire body, which is really the function of the circulatory system. Within transportation, there are three elements that we are actually transporting in the circulatory system, which is respiratory will be the first one, which is the red blood cells, the oxygen, and the CO2, which is in return to the heart via veins into the heart. And then we have the nutrition part of it. When we eat, have you ever thought about what happens when we eat any food? So if you eat a steak, right, it's like super delicious, and then you pass your mouth, and then it's gone. Well, it's not gone for the body. The body does when it first starts working on it. When the stomach starts digesting this steak, then it goes through the digestive system. The first part of the intestines, which is the small intestine, this is the one in charge of. Did we talk about that yet? I guess it's coming up. The first part of the intestines, which is the small intestine, is going to absorb the nutrients from anything that we eat. So we are indeed what we eat. So therefore, the intestine has this connection, right? This is what the intestine looks like. And then when it opens, it transports the nutrients into the blood system. So this is how the nutrients go into the rest of your cells in your body. For example, when you're working out, they tell you, okay, eat a lot of protein. How does it go to my muscles? Well, it goes exactly like that. From the intestine, goes to your blood, and then the blood spreads out when there's a need. Typically, if you work out, the muscles get injured. That's really what happens. When we're doing, all this weight, all these repetitions, and your muscle fibers break, this is when the restoration happens, right? So if we break the muscles when we're working out, the new nutrition or the protein comes in and fills in the gaps, and that's how your muscle grows. Well, so the nutrition part of the transportation goes that into the system. And lastly, we have the excretion or excretory part, subpart of the transportation. So all this process that happens in all the cells and all the systems in your body get the nutrition and the oxygen that we have talked about before. So then in exchange, in the return, it collects basically the waste. So it returns the waste, and then it takes it through the through the capillaries, and then it goes to the kidneys, and then it goes out. So those are the three sub-elements of transportation within the circulatory system, which is one of three parts. Transportation is one. The second function of the circulatory system is regulation, because the blood transports hormones throughout your body to regulate and keep that homeostasis. So for example, when you're scared, when you get scared all of a sudden, and you feel that adrenaline, right, coming from the adrenal glands on top of your kidneys, right? You feel something in your stomach, right above your stomach or kind of behind, and then explodes, and then it goes out to the whole entire body. So that's what happens here. And then there's a lot of hormones that use the circulatory system to regulate the whole entire body. And then the last function of the circulatory system is protection. The circulatory system is amazing. It does have like I call it the police department. It checks that all the time, registering for foreign objects or foreign cells in this case. If a cell comes that is not supposed to be there, it encapsulates and then destroys. And depending on what it is, if it's an infection, then the infection, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in chapter 3, how infections happen and everything. But when it's a small exposure and the body is able to capture it, then this is how it protects us from getting sick. It also has, the blood also has some mechanisms to prevent coagulation. And then also at the same time, if there's an injury, it releases elements to coagulate in the area. So for example, when you get a cut, right, you get a little cut, and then if you hold it for a little bit, and then within seconds, it's not going to bleed anymore. Of course, if you didn't get a vessel cut, right? So, say a scratch that you're bleeding or whatnot. And then, the platelets come in and make like a little clot in there to help us. So we talk about this more in depth in surgical technology. Look at one of my white hairs. No. Okay, well, it is there. So that's the protection part. And then we also have a lot of elements in the blood that are going to help us reduce the pathogenic elements if they are found in the blood. Okay, so those are the three main functions of the circulatory system: transportation, regulation, and protection. Within the transportation, we transport oxygen, CO2, and then the nutrition, and then the hormone, the excretion, which is the waste collection system. Okay, so that's the first section. Now, going a little bit forward, the major areas of the circulatory system can be divided into two: the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system. And the cardiovascular system, which is basically the heart and the vessels, veins and arteries. And then the lymphatic system, which is the lymph nodes and the lymph vessels. This is the waste route of the whole entire process. So the circulatory system contains these two areas. Now, let's talk about the cardiovascular system. Let's talk about the heart. The main function of the heart: pump blood. It's a pump, nothing else. The heart does not do anything else. Its only job is to pump blood out of the body, and then vessels and veins, they take it outside of the heart and then back to the heart. So that's basically the function of the circulatory system. And the goal is that when the blood is like enriched with this oxygen, goes out through the aorta, and then it goes to the rest of the body. It goes, part of it goes to the brain and the arms, and then when it goes down, it goes to the abdomen and the legs, all the internal organs. We're going to talk a little bit about the heart, the circulatory heart. So move over to your next page, 52, and you do have the arterial system and the venous system. Let me see if I have it here. I only have the heart, but We're going to talk about that here in a minute. You can find your main arteries and your main veins. Typically for an artery, there is a vein. For example, femoral artery, femoral vein, radial artery, radial vein, and typically there's one and one. And the location is given by the closest major structure. Like, for example, when we said femoral artery, is because they're close by the femur. We say radial artery or radial vein is because it's close by the radius bone. And you can see, you can find them if you want to follow the both structures. The arteries go away from the heart, take the blood away from the heart, and the veins bring the blood back to the heart. On figure 211, you're going to find the lymphatic system, which does not use the same system as the veins and the arteries. It's an independent system, and this is what you can find in 211. You can find the nodules, which are the little circles, and then the tube, the lymph tubes that are going to be the ones moving the lymph around the body. Okay. On page 53, it says the heart is a hollow, cone-shaped, muscular pump located within the chest and rests upon the diaphragm. It is bordered on each side by the lungs. Nice. The heart can contract more than 2.5 billion times in a lifetime without stopping. Hopefully, right? It doesn't stop. The heart pumps more than 10. I'm going to kind of, this information is not very accurate. It says the heart pumps more than 10 gallons of blood a minute. That is not correct. It's it's 5.2 liters, which is not 10 gallons. But I don't know. Maybe we can call the editors and let them know that that is incorrect. I don't remember that question is on your textbook, but if you see 10 gallons, that will probably be the answer. But that in reality is 5.2 liters approximately. All right. Let me see what we have here. We can see figure 212, and we can see the pump, how the heart, the structure, the anatomy of the heart. This is not very well designed, but it's like a broad image of how the heart is pumping the blood. I do have another image that I'm going to show you that is actually probably a little bit better than the other one. If you want to turn the page over for to 213, and I'm going to share my screen here with you so we can. Okay. So I'm going to bring this to me so I don't look away. There you go. And I'm going to I'm going to exit this and make this a little bit bigger so we can talk about that. Okay, so this is the heart and the heart circulation, more or less. The heart, right, is not like this, but the heart rather, we said it's a cone shape with some chambers. And I'm going to go ahead and start working on the heart. So the heart is a pump that has 4 chambers, 2 upper chambers, 1 and 2, and then 2 lower chambers, which are this and this one here on the bottom. The top ones are called atrium, both of them, and the location will be right or left depending on which side of the heart they are. If they are taking venous blood, is going to be right side. So therefore here on the top is going to be called right atrium. So maybe I can type this. Let me see if I can get an image here. So this is going to be called right atrium. You can actually label it like that too, to start getting familiar with that. So therefore, from the right atrium, the blood, and we're going to do the flow. So I'm just going to identify the chambers right now. So this one is the right ventricle. This one on the top is the left atrium, and this one on the bottom is the left ventricle. So those are the 4 chambers that we have in the heart. And as you can see, there's like a lot of arrows here that indicates the blood flow. But right now, let's just focus on the 4 chambers. And I'm going to also locate a few other structures that I that I think you should know. This one here, this blue, is superior vena cava. This inferior one is inferior vena cava. And you can find this image on your page 55, figure 214, I'm sorry. So superior vena cava, and that kind of, it gives it away, right? Superior, it's upper, and inferior is below. We also have this beautiful arch that we see here. This is the aorta, then the whole entire tube leaving the heart. This round part is, this is the aortic arch, and then it becomes the aorta behind the heart. This one here is also the aorta, more like the abdominal aorta here on the bottom. And then we have, let me erase, I'm going to erase all this so we can see a little bit smaller structures here. These two, 1, 2 on the right, and then 1, 2 on the left. These are pulmonary veins. And this one, and this one becomes 2 actually here. These are going to be called pulmonary arteries. Okay, so with that being said, remember I want you to know the chambers, the 4 chambers, and the main vessels that that are either feeding or helping the heart pump the blood out. Between the chambers, between the atria, and so the heart is divided, I said earlier, in right and left. The heart has a septum that divides the 2 sections, the right and the left side. And then it also has, between the atrium, the ventricles, you know how the atrium are on the top or superior, and then the ventricles are inferior. Between them, there are valves. So at the end of the day, we have 4 valves in the heart, and I'm going to indicate here. This is your first valve here. Between, we can call it AV valves, atrioventricular valve, so between the atrium and the ventricle. This is another atrioventricular valve on the left side. This is the pulmonary valve right here before it goes to lungs, and this is the aortic valve. Okay, so we are going to label this. So this one on the right side is going to be tricuspid valve. I'm just going to put the initials, tricuspid valve. And on the right side, and then on the left side, this is going to be the mitral valve. And everything is on your diagram. I'm just, and you actually have this diagram that I'm showing you. It's also on your modules. This one here in the center of the heart, this is the pulmonary artery, pulmonary arteries. And then the ones returning, I'm sorry, this is not pulmonary arteries. I was talking about, let me just go back one. We're talking about pulmonary valve. Pulmonary valve, and this one is the aortic valve. So we have 4, tricuspid, mitral, pulmonary, and aortic. Yeah? Okay, so let me erase all this now, and let's take a tour. Let's take a trip. I want to show you how the blood travels through the heart. Okay? I'm going to take a ride. Let me see. I'm going to make a drawing here. Yeah, I want to draw. Which pen? Highlighter. No, I want to do it with a pen. And color, perfect. All right, so the blood comes to the heart from 2 areas. From the head, through the superior vena cava. I'm going to take a little thicker. And inferiorly, from the abdomen and the rest of the body. Together, they are going to empty the blood in the right atrium. I don't know if you can see this right atrium. From the right atrium, the blood is going to pass through the valve into the right ventricle. And then from the right ventricle, the blood is going to take out to the lungs, passing through the pulmonary valve, remember? So here, the pulmonary arteries, one goes to the left lung, and the other side goes to the right lung. Now, we're going to talk about the respiratory system next. The blood is sent out to the lungs to be treated. Let's put it that way. Yeah, we're going to pause here because then we're going to talk about the respiratory. All right, so that is good. Superior and inferior vena cava, right atrium, goes through the valve, and then through to the right ventricle, and then from the right ventricle it goes to the lungs through the pulmonary valve. Yeah, so I'm going to erase all this out to the lung. And then from the lungs is going to come back to the heart via the pulmonary veins, which is this 4, if you can see here. 1, 2, 2 on the right and 2 on the left. All this is going to drop the blood into the left atrium. From the left atrium, the blood goes down to the left ventricle through the mitral valve, and then out to the aorta through the aortic valve into the body. Yeah, so this is the aortic arch. And then, of course, from this goes to the head, on the arm, and this to the head, and this to the arm, and then goes back until it leaves down to the body. I do have a small video about the blood circulation. If this was very confusing, I will recommend that you can either draw your own heart, the 4 chambers, and then follow the route, because you need to know this. Okay, so I'm going to clear, and I'm going to dictate the list. So you can put it, if you're visual, this worked for you. If you're a little bit more analytical, you need to put it on a list. You need to know this list for your exam. Yeah? All right. So the blood goes to the heart between superior and inferior vena cava, right atrium, tricuspid valve, left atrium. Oh, what did I say? Not left atrium. Right atrium, tricuspid valve, right ventricle, pulmonary valve into the lungs. And then from the lungs comes back through the pulmonary veins into the left atrium, through the mitral valve into the left ventricle, and then aortic valve into the aorta. If you want to do initials, right, SVC, IVC, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, SVC, IVC, and then right atrium, so RA, and then the tricuspid valve, TV, and then right ventricle, RV, and then pulmonary valve, PV, into the lungs. And then from lungs comes back to the LA, left atrium, mitral valve, NV, left ventricle, LV, aortic, aortic valve here, and then to the aorta. And aorta for short is AO. So I want you to make a list of how the blood goes into the body and comes back to the heart. Now, why do we want to know the circulatory system? Well, because we're going to have diseases like open heart surgery. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard about when people have grafts, quadruple bypass, double bypass, things like that. So this is one of the surgeries that we do. There's also a disease in which the aorta, which is this one right here, it gets narrowed in one area, so we do a patch in there. We also have congenital diseases in which the chambers are not exactly how they should be, and we go and do some repairs. We also do some valve repairs between the chambers, between the atria and the ventricles. We do some repairs open heart too. Obviously, we do have transplants. So some of the a lot of the instruments that are dedicated to the heart are only going to be in that tray. It's a huge tray. It's 158 instruments or something like that between the small and the large instruments. We need a lot of instruments when we do open heart surgery. So it's important that you know how the heart works when you are going to do those trays, because they might ask you, for a vascular clamp specifically designed for the heart, and you need to have an idea. For example, if they ask you for an aortic clamp, you're not going to give them a teeny tiny clamp that you can use in any other vessel. The aortic clamp, look at the aorta, is huge. It's about 1.5 inches diameter. It's very thick. It's the largest artery in the body. Okay. Let's see what else do we have here. All right. So that's about the heart. So with this, we finished the circulatory system. But please go back and look at the figures 213 to 12. to 10 and to 9 to have a better idea of the whole entire circulatory system. Make sure you know all the three functions and the divisions of transportation. And then within that, what each one does. And then make sure you remember the cardiovascular and the lymphatic system are part of the circulatory system. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the respiratory system. Remember that I said that the circulatory system is linked and totally dependent on the respiratory system. So they work together. Cardiorespiratory system, we can call it. You know, some places they call it cardiopulmonary or cardiorespiratory. The respiratory system, let's move to page 56. The respiratory system, the main function is to distribute air and exchange gases. That's it. That's all we're going to do. Deliver O2 and restore CO2 and transform, right? Keep changing and keep changing. That's the job of the lungs. The exchange is going to be between oxygen and CO2 or carbon dioxide. In this image, you have kind of mimicking page 57. We have the two images here together. How does the air get to the lungs? Well, I'm pretty sure we are good about this, right? We're going to start with breathing. It could be through the nose or through the mouth. And obviously, breathing through the nose has more benefits, but a lot of people are mouth breather. So the oxygen enters the lungs through either one of the two. So the oxygen is going to enter through the nose or through the mouth. And it goes through the pharynx, epiglottis, and then epiglottis is the one that it's like a little flap that divides between swallowing or food or liquid and going to the respiratory system or to the lungs, right? So it's like a valve that is opening either way, depending on what you're doing. And then we're gonna go through the glottis, larynx, trachea, and then you follow here. The trachea is going to divide into two bronchus, the right and the left bronchus. And then with this, we're going to have the right lung and the left lung. As you can see here, let me just exchange this for a little circle. This is the right lung. And as you can see, we have 1, 2, and 3 lobes, while the left lung only has 1 and 2. The body is designed like that because guess what? We need space here in the center of the heart, the center of the chest for the heart. This is where the heart lands. Now, the heart is smack in the center. You know how people say, oh, it's in the left. No, it's not in the left. It's right in the center and it's tilted like that more towards the left, but it's still in the center. So if we think about this oval right here, the heart is going to be a little bit on that shape, being the tip of the heart or the apex of the heart, how we call it, here on this area, right? So the heart is going to be drawn that way. Okay. So that's the reason we have that only 2 lobes on the left side. Isn't that great that the body by itself is creating this space to host the heart in between the lungs? It is just amazing. All right, so these are the lungs, and then within the lungs you can see we have the bronchus, which is the main branch. Let's put it that way. And then we're gonna have these little branches right here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, this is actually 2 because I'm on the left side. Clear all this. So it's gonna have 1 and 2, to feed both lobes. And then on the right lung, we're gonna have the bronchioles that feed or are communicating to each one of the lobes. So as you can see here on this image, a bronchiole is the extension of this like arm-like, branch-like that reach out to every little cell of your lungs. Now, I want you to take a look at this little tiny things. Look at this thing. These are alveoli. And then a cluster of alveoli, it's an alveolar sac. The lungs are filled with alveolar sacs all around. Each alveolar sac is going to contain a lot of alveoli. Alveoli is the smallest unit. Remember how we talk about the division of the tissues? Oh, I think I'm getting hit. No, yeah, we're going to talk about that. The alveoli, if we talk about the respiratory system, we're going to start with the alveoli, alveolar sac to become into circulatory or respiratory system from one cell. Right. So the alveoli is a single cell. The alveolus are so delicate, single squamous epithelium, small, delicate, and when people have pneumonia or COVID, a lot of the people, this is where they lose their capacity to breathe. When the alveola dies, they do not recover. So when we take an x-ray of somebody who has had pneumonia, we can see an area of the lung that is definitely not working. So this is what we see. This is why, where people start getting their oxygen lower levels. This is what was happening. The alveola was starting to get compromised. All right. So, well, anyhow, the capillary network, which is on top of the alveolus, which is the alveolar sac, and then covering the sacs, we can see the capillary network, and we can see red represents the arteries and blue represents the veins. Just keep in mind, all blood is red. Just arterial is a little redder, brighter, nicer, and the venous blood is a little bit darker, but still red nonetheless. We just do this for educational purposes so we can differentiate. So this is where the exchange of oxygen happens, right? So the vein brings the deoxygenated blood full of CO2 or the carbon dioxide, which is like super important to create another equilibrium or homeostasis into the body. We need CO2. And then with each breath, this is how we reload the oxygen. The oxygen reloads into the blood every time the blood gets into the lung. Remember that from the heart, we send the blood to the lungs, that's CO2. And then the exchange happens here in the capillary network, and then it comes back to the heart, refreshed and fully oxygenated. I mean, fully oxygenated if our patients are actually healthy from their alveoli. Okay, so this is the respiratory system. You can see here on page 57, and you can see a little bit more structures, but it is pretty much what we have just talked about. All right, team. This is all that I want you to see for now. The cardiovascular, I keep telling the cardiovascular system, but it is the circulatory system because that includes the lymphatic system and the respiratory system. Make sure you go back and study the both. You make the list on the blood flow because that's going to be on your test. All right, so I hope that you like this section. Please review it 1, 2, 3 times, however many is necessary, so you can understand, have your book on hand, and then go with the pages as we go. All right, so let me just finish my share, and I will